So he's got hens. What I usually try to do when he's got hens, I either try to get in his face and get the hens to come towards me, which I'll do something like all I'll do is I'll hit them with some cutting, and I'll get in there and I'll go. Just and then she'll a lot of times if she comes back with a then I'll cut her off again and I'll slowly back it off as they're coming. I'll go back to a just kind of trying to keep pulling in that rope. But Mark's really funny. Mark Jury and we're buddies, and he's like, Beau, you throw. What I do is I throw the heavy line out first, and then pull it in and soften it up. What he does is he throws soft in, and he starts getting faster and faster as it goes. And so both ways work. But for me, I really like to get her mad and then slowly back it off, so she has to come look for me.
Yeah.
And so it works really well for me. Probably the best case scenario is if you know they're going a direction, like say they're in a riverbank, like a riverbank. A lot of times they'll get down on those little creek beds or riverbanks. They'll be walking it up, get down, try and get in front of them, or they're going to move up this ridge. They've been gobbling on the top of this ridge every day. Just get up there and just soft call, scratch it, and just don't mess them up. Don't steer the hens a different way. Just let them come to you.
Yeah.
It make the move.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot of sense. And this kind back to the reading kind of the emotion of, what the hens are doing. Cause I'm from basically what you're saying at that point, you're more so probably not, and maybe I'm wrong, but you're not going to call that gobbler off of those hens. He's already kind of got them there. You're trying to get the hens to come to you at that point and him to follow.
Yeah. Especially early, because they're not going to leave them. If it's a little bit later, I'm willing to wait them out. I will wait for those hens to leave him. I know that eventually what I've done before too, is I've just left them too. I'm like, okay, you want to just hang out with those hens all day? I'm going to come back at about 2:00 and I'll see you then, or noon or something, and sit down and start calling. There's just a lot of scenarios, but if I'm going to stick with them all day, I'm going to either try and get in front of them. I'm going to try and, if the hens get back at me, I'm going to make her mad and I'm going to pull her up, or I'm just going to wait him out and just let him play his game for a while. And eventually Eastern's it's going to be in their mind. If he's gobbling or whatnot, when he's not gobbling actually means more sometimes. He's just sitting there and he's thinking about it. It's gnawing at his mind. He's like, she's up there on the ridge. She's not talking to me. I can hear her scratching. I need to go see what's going on, but I got you down here. And then she leaves. What I've seen it so many times, that Tom's strutting like this, and he kind of goes down and pecks at something, and he looks up, and they all just bolt. And they all leave him. And then he's like this. He starts looking around, and he's just cow, 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 just yelling. And then all you've got to do at that point is just literally just anything, and he's just up to you.
Yeah. Do you feel like, do you use mouth calls exclusively, or do you use other calls as well?
No, man. No, I think that it's foolish to just use a mouth call. You know what I mean? There's the box calls sound so good nowadays, and the slate calls. And I'm telling you, every Tom has a hen in his mind that's going to set him off. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, right? So you've heard so many times, you're sitting there calling this bird, just cow, cow, cow. He's coming up the ridge. You're like, yeah, he's done. He's going to pop. Then you hear, and you're like, oh no. And he gobbles 10 times harder at that hen than you, and just runs right to her.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I couldn't tell you how many different times I'm working this bird, and I'm sitting there. And a lot of times there's a property line below me. There's a private, and I'm on the public. I'm calling at this bird, and he's gobbling every 3-4 times. And I'm like, I'm throwing down some good stuff. I'm like, this is some of the prettiest mouth calling I've done in forever. You're not even gobbling. And I pull out this dang box call, and I'm like, and it's double gobble. I'm like, what? And I'm like, I'm going back to my mouth call. And I call again, doesn't answer. And then I'm like, I'm like, oh, here he comes. Or my buddy has this terrible box call. And it's not terrible. It's like, it sounds like this. It goes, It's like the, and it's like, I call it the pterodactyl. And I remember I was calling these birds. There's 3 toms on this other side of this fence, and I'm calling at them, and I'm just hitting them. They're, but they wouldn't move at all. And he starts calling the pterodactyl, and then all of a sudden I see him running up the hill. And I'm like, and he shot one, and he's like, I told you had to bring that. I'm like, trash, man. It's just interesting. It's a different octave. It's a louder octave, right? And so, like, if I run my box call all the time when that bird's not right in front of me, because I'm not trying to ruin my mouth calls either. Running them at full capacity is just destroying your mouth call. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And my rule of thumb is if I can get them to answer a box call, I can usually kill them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
my last 2 birds that I've killed were box calls, and it was just like, it was really funny on how, like, the one was a Miriam's. Well, I didn't kill that one. My brother did. It was funny. We were bear hunting and ran into a podcast listener that was like, he had just killed a turkey. He's like, hey dude, there's like a bunch of turkeys like 4 miles back in here. If you guys want to go in, like I'm done hunting there. We went back in, and my brother he was a Montana resident at the time, had a turkey tag, and had all he had to think was a box call. And I was like, well, I'll call for you. And we went back and called that bird in, and it ended up killing it. And then same thing in PA, where it's like, I hear it so many times, like, oh, everyone has a box call. That doesn't work in Pennsylvania. There's so many turkey hunters. Man, I still find a lot of times that you can get a bird that goes off of it. And I like kind of what you're saying. It sounds like what you're saying a lot of times is just kind of figuring out what that bird likes.
Wants to hear.
Might have to, when listening, okay, he's responding to that hen, like you said, like, okay, maybe I want to sound more like that with this specific bird, but that bird over there is completely different and may need something else. So having that toolbox and learning to be proficient with those different tools is helps you out.
Oh, it's 100%, man. It's just having that there. It's just like whitetail hunting. You know, it's like you talk to a guy. I remember there's this guy that hunted. It was at is my friends at Habitat Flats, and they're like, they had a deer hunter that was in, this old guy, and he's like, I'm gonna go. He couldn't get up a tree stand or anything. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna rattle on the ground. They're like, well, I've had lots of people hunting the area, and you know, you're not gonna call whatever. You just go sit. Shot a 193-inch buck just sitting on the ground rattling. It's like, there's so many times that I've been told something won't work in an area because there's so much pressure. Dude, you're hitting them on that day, right?
Yeah.
If it's their day, and I don't care if it's a bull elk, I don't care if it's a mule deer on the rut, I don't care if it's I don't care what it is. If you hit them on their right day, they're going to act right, and they're going to do what they need to do. And it could be the right day to hear a box call. It could be the right day to hear a mouth call. It's just trying all those different things. And then if you're not successful, trying the next day, something a little bit different, you know, a different approach. And so I've hunted some of the highest public, the hardest hunted public land in the country for turkeys. And I run a box call, I run a mouth call, I run a slate call, I crow call at them. I do everything that I normally would do. And sometimes I'll back off and I won't do something because I'm not liking it, and I learn from it. But man, just writing something off because you don't believe in it, you know, I think is very, and I think it's very foolish in a way.
Yeah. Oh, I know, dude. I think about that with whitetails and how I've been with rattling. So like but still, even like in Pennsylvania, a lot of people will tell me, oh, you can't call at all. And I've grunted in most of the deer and have different grunt and bleat sequences that I use. And like, I love the vocalization of whitetails too. And that's like a big part. My dad's the same way with the strategy of hunting whitetails, but rattling is something that's, you know, quote unquote, never worked for us. So it was something that I don't even carry anymore. And I'm like, but I've talked to people through the podcast that have hunted different states and different areas. And I'm like, well, maybe I wasn't sounding realistic enough. Maybe I wasn't trying, you know, and I said I was going to do it last year and I actually completely forgot about it, but I need to start bringing them again and just trying it and trying different strategy with it and seeing if it would work. Because maybe I'll unlock something with a specific deer that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And it's like, it doesn't hurt to be able to try it.
I totally agree. And I mean, it's just like one of those things. Well, if everybody says it doesn't work, that means no one's doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so interesting. Right here by the house, there's some public land. It's called Land Between the Lakes. And I went out there and I called in a turkey this last year. And they're like, you can't call at them except for scratching leaves and clucking and purring. And I got this bird to gobble, and I went in there, back, 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 back. And he's like, this came running right in. And I'm like, okay. I will say one thing. That way of calling, though, is tried and true, and it works, and it's just like sometimes if it's not working for you, it's just like a gobble on a mouth call. I don't gobble very often at turkeys, but it's like this last year I called in 4 that otherwise I wouldn't have even got to, and I called them across property lines that I normally wouldn't have got to go. And I just started, it's always my last, is I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I feel good. I'm just going to try it. And then all of a sudden he just gobbles right in front of us. And we're like, oh, get down. And it's every little thing. It's a grab back. Even just the slipping, you're slipping in on a bird and you're like, may only work 50% of the time. But when he does come in, it's like bowed up, ready to rock.
Well, it's funny. I was just before we got on this podcast, this morning I was driving down to the gym and I had one of your mouth calls that you'd given me, one of your Beau Brooks edition power calls, and I was just messing with it, and I'll do that in the truck when I'm driving to places, and I was like, one thing I've never tried to do was gobble, and I was just trying to do it, and it was pretty comical. The result, I definitely sounded like a Jake, if anything, but that was it was pretty interesting. But how do you gobble on a mouth call? Maybe that's not as easy explained here, but
let me see. Let's find one. I got a bunch of mouth calls here. So what I do is, instead of like, this is what everybody wants to know though. So what I do is I'll take this call and I'll use the middle part of my tongue, like the middle front part of my tongue, instead of the tip of your tongue. That's why you'll sound like a Jake. If you use the tip of your tongue, you'll sound like this.
Yep.
Your middle part of your tongue. And so I go, taka, 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 and then you walk before you run. Taka, taka, taka. That slow. And just practice that before you try and put it all together. Everybody always wants to put it together right off the bat. That's not good for business, man. I'm telling you, it'll be good to learn. And it's kind of just become like a kind of a show off thing when I'm calling and whatnot. Yeah. It sounds good. But I mean, it's become fairly, Easterns out of all the subspecies I've ever hunted react the best to a gobble call. Out of every turkey I've ever hunted, like if you hear gobbling back and forth, they always seem to, like, if they're on the ground, they always at some point come back together. And what I've noticed is, like, I get out there and I start gobbling at them, and I've really had some good success with it, especially when it's in big woods where it can rattle a little bit.
Yeah.